I really tried to come up with a funny, interesting cold open for this video, but it's a review for Don't Breathe 2, just roll the intro. Years after the initial deadly home invasion, the blind man has been hiding out in an isolated cabin and has taken in and raised a young girl who lost her parents in a house fire. But their quiet existence is interrupted when a group of kidnappers come in, they take the girl and force the blind man to leave his safe haven. Now before I start with my review, I want to know what you guys think of the first Don't Breathe. There's actually a review I have for it. I'll link it up here and you can go check that out. It came out in 2016, my first year of doing movie reviews on YouTube. I really fucking love that movie. I have loved it ever since. So I want to know what you guys think. So throw all your thoughts down there in the comments below. Start the conversation because it's always the most important part. And while you're down there, if you would kindly consider to click the subscribe button because it does wonders to get my content out there and you'll always be aware whenever there's more new content. Where to start with Don't Breathe 2? I was skeptical going into this film. I wanted to be excited. I don't think a sequel to that first movie is automatically bad. I think there are ideas that could have worked. This is not one of them. I cannot wrap my head around how they came up with this story that doesn't flow whatsoever in itself, not to mention how it doesn't flow with the first movie. But let me start with a few things that work. I think Stephen Lang is a great actor. I think he's a great actor here. I think the little girl that joins him in this film, I think she does a really good job, especially for such a young actress. And given that most other people did not do a good job in this movie. I also think the film looks really good. The use of color and shadows and lighting in this film is really well done. I truly appreciate the work of the cinematography. And there are a lot of cool one-shots that of course sometimes are enhanced by CGI, but that also comes from director Fede Alvarez, who himself learned from Fincher. So if in the first one you thought there was a lot of moving cameras panning around and wonders that reminded you of Panic Room, they bring that back here, so I like that connection, how the visual aesthetic of the film is very similar to the first one, because it is one of the very few technical aspects that actually tries to, just by how it looks and how it is shot, connect to that first film. Let's get to the bad stuff. And let's just start by addressing the biggest problem in this film, the character of the blind man. You know what's cool about this character is because he's blind, we're expecting him to not be up to par to fight 3 people, let alone 20 or 10 or however many people he fights in this movie, but he does because he's a fucking beast. He's a horror movie monster. He's the monster. He's not the hero. That's why he's so cool in that first film, and he's so unpredictable and he's so in control because he's the villain. It's cool for him to be a villain, especially with that twist midway through the first film, the irredeemable actions that he did to that young girl. Granted, we understand his motivations, but those actions are nevertheless reprehensible on his part. We're not supposed to root for him. This film tells you that he's raising this young girl, he's doing no harm to her, but that's it. And I don't think that's how redemption works. I don't think this film attempts at all at giving him a supposed redemption. We're just supposed to come into this film and accept that he has now redeemed himself. That is not how it fucking works. Not to mention that I said I like Stephen Lang. I love him. I really like him in this movie. The character of the blind man, he's got none of his superpowers. I don't think the first film is that far-fetched. I don't think the first film takes that much of a suspension of disbelief to be believable and serious and realistic and however you want to call it. This film, he constantly gets his ass kicked. The way he used his other senses in the first film feels like they're all bad in this one. He can't see, but he also clearly can't use sound or smell or touch except in the little moments where it's convenient because the script says so. I'll give the filmmakers that. You clearly use those senses whenever you need the story to advance, because otherwise you'd be stuck. And for the most part, they are stuck because this dude feels incompetent. At points they even refer to him again as a Navy SEAL, as if there wasn't a first movie. There are probably 2, maybe 3 lines of dialogue that vaguely address the issues of the first movie. Not the issues, the events. And so when you have all these problems where this does not act, feel, sound like the same character, you got a big problem in your hands. I seriously cannot wrap my head around how this story, this script, was approved as a Don't Breathe sequel. This is co-written by Fede Alvarez, who directed the first movie. He gave the blessing to one of his producers from the first movie to direct this one. It's so disappointing. I cannot call this one of the worst made movies I have ever seen. It just isn't. It's fairly professionally made. The lighting is done, it's shot very clearly by professionals, the sound is very much there. The writing is not whatsoever. It feels like they got a script and then they just thought it was a good idea to force the blind man from the Don't Breathe movie into it because they barely connect, and it's frustrating. I hate this movie more than I should, for sure. If you watch this movie without having seen the first one, it's perfectly watchable, even if mildly frustrating, because the hero can barely get anything done. But it hurts a lot having that first movie in context because it was so good. And again, I think a sequel, depending on the idea, could have worked, but not this one. The dialogue is also atrocious. There's a character who literally says the line when someone tells him that, "Oh, this guy's a Navy SEAL." And then that character I was mentioning says, "Yeah, a dead SEAL, bro." I did not wait to see the credits, but I bet his name was Chad. At the end of the day, Don't Breathe 2 is just a bunch of shitty people doing shitty things to one another. You cannot root for anyone you don't like for anyone. The film takes leaps in logic. There are baffling. The only person you can possibly root for is this little girl, but whoever wins this battle between the kidnappers and the blind men, none of them are to her benefit. None of them have her best interest in mind, so you're literally not rooting for anyone. You just want this girl to disappear from the movie, much like you want to disappear from the movie theater. I'm giving Don't Breathe 2 a D. Thank you so much for watching. You guys are the best. Don't forget to let me know all your thoughts down in the comments below. And hey, if this was your first video that you watched from me, thank you so much for clicking on it. And don't forget to click on the subscribe button, because if you're still watching, you enjoyed it on some level. Thank you so much once more. I can never thank you enough. Check out my reviews for the latest episode of Shaman King. I have reviews for the first 3 episodes of Marvel's What If. No spoilers, but I do have a spoiler review for the first episode that came out this week. And tomorrow it's Geeks of the Roundtable Day, the podcast I do with my friend Zach Pope. So I hope to see you there. And so until then, love each other and love the movies.